sort of environmental sense and to make recommendations to the Board of Trustees for them to act upon. So in other words, it's sort of like the zoning committee would make recommendations for them on zoning and planning, and the Parks ProSab does the same thing. So this is, it could also sort of be called like the Environment Advisory
Oh, I
Board
see it.
to the town board, the Board of Trustees. And we can also sort of initiate things on our own and recommend them to.
It'll sense where it
But
thinks.
we really have no legal authority whatsoever outside of the
Peter
Board
said
of Trustees does with our
it's
recommendations.
making him download. Oh,
Oh,
no.
he's on.
Oh, yes, okay.
And you have quorum.
Completely,
Okay.
yeah.
Close the.
Do you cover dead trees too in the town?
Yeah, we can cover anything. I mean, I would say that our focus is things that within the town limits. I mean, but things outside the town can affect the environment of the town too. But if, you know, if it was something that came up and it was a recommendation that we wanted to make to the board, it's something we can look at anything pretty much. I mean, we don't want to step on the toes of other town committees.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there a dead tree?
Okay, I can't see who's on.
Yeah, just a
You have Nicole on and Bobby, and then we have a call-in user. Who's on the phone?
dead trees lying around and. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
kind of-
me. I'm on the phone. Rab Luchen.
Oh, perfect. And Rat,
Okay.
Well, I think we do have a
you have
time for
quorum.
public comment, so, we have a time for public comment, don't we? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm Jim, not public.
All right. Thank you everybody for being here. We will call the meeting to order at 6:48 PM. We do have a slight change to the agenda, because the mobile electronic waste, girls are not gonna be here tonight. So, please check out that email, and try to fill out, was it a survey?
Yeah, they wanted a survey and then also, and they're happy to answer any questions that you have, but, couldn't make it today.
Yeah, and look at that. But so since they're not gonna be here, we can still talk about that, but we're gonna bump it to number 2, and we're gonna start with the Colorado Car Share Program, since we do have Peter here.
Are you doing roll call?
I don't,
Did
well, it's up to the secretary to just note who's here.
Oh, Nicole.
Nicole,
Got it. Okay.
she's here, right?
Nicole's got it.
And really, it's the AI that's our secretary now, so. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Peter, thank you for being here. I'll just do a quick intro. So, as you all know, can everyone hear me, by the way? Hopefully. As you all know, we didn't go after the camp grant, which would have been a partnership with Boulder County, Colorado Car Share, and some other areas. We may still do that next year, but in the meantime, Peter and I have been discussing how to still bring that program to Nederland and possibly have an EV that's available for the program. So thanks so much, Peter, and I will let you take it away. Oh, and is the audio not working for you? Hmm.
Nicole, just so you know, Alan just arrived for your minutes.
Thank you. Who was the other gentleman that's in the room? Is that a member?
We have Jim here, a member of the public, right?
Oh, okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing a human being. Thank you.
Got Rich though.
Jim
yes.
is a human being.
That's fair.
Know that for sure.
Yes, thank you. A SAB human being. Thank you.
Hmm. I think Peter's logging back in.
Yeah, logging out and logging back in.
Should we go back to the
I am having
electronics?
issues too.
I mean, if you want, I could just quickly touch on that prototype, electronic prototype. while we're waiting. So just a reminder, the last time I was with you, since I can't remember when that was, the Colorado School of Mines, 2 students had reached out. One of their projects was to design an electronic recycling center. Of course, this is just a prototype. They're offering some recommendations. There's no funding with this. There's no grant. It's just a project for theirs, but thought it was pretty cool. They reached out to Nederland, came up with kind of a model of what the electronic recycling center could look like, gave us some information. It includes solar panels, it includes kind of lockers inside that you would put your electronics into. The reason that they selected this is really just recognizing that one time of year we divert electronics at town cleanup, and that's like one of the most popular stations is for everyone to bring their electronics. So really felt like Nederland could maybe use something like this, and of course it would be up to us then if we ever in the future wanted to pursue securing funding for something like this. But big shout out to Jenna and Hannah and the rest of their team. I do think it's that they chose Nederland and that they worked on this project. And so they'd love your feedback. I know they didn't work directly with all staff members, but have a survey they'd like for you to fill out. And then if you have any questions or want to know more, they're only in school for another week. They take their finals next week. So, but just kind of a fun project. Something to stick on our SAP page. And
Is the 150K price tag something that Nederland would cover?
I think we would have to secure grant funding. Like, Nederland didn't necessarily commit. It wasn't like, oh, by agreeing to have them use us for this project, it wasn't like we agree to do this. It was, we agreed to be your subject as you design this. And so, they did connect with Cody from Boulder County, and of course, talk to Nikki and talk to some of our team about town cleanup diversion data. Yeah, I mean, so it's up to you all, if this is something you want to keep your eye out for funding, or we just chalk it up to a fun project.
Yeah.
It was done. And I think it's cool that schools are reaching out to us kind of unprompted. I think that's a great sign of like,
It looks like we got Peter back now.
oh, great.
I
Yeah.
think I'm here. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I did the whole WebEx software download and then it wouldn't let me unmute. So I just went back and did it in my browser.
Well, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. I'm not too familiar other than my discussions with Leah, kind of like where you guys are at in this process, but wondering if it would be helpful for me to give you a quick sort of an organizational overview and car share program overview, and then happy to dive into some budgetary considerations. I have a few slides that I can share with folks if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Let me just share here.
Which one? So this is just the link in the email that Miranda sent us, the WebEx.
What are you looking for?
Here's the link for the.
To join WebEx?
It's the email that Miranda sent yesterday. It has a link in it. I think it was yesterday.
All right. Let me know when you guys can see that.
I can see
I
it.
can see it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It sounds like a pretty interesting opportunity. I'll give you a pretty quick overview around Colorado Car Share, our organization, what we've been up to, and then you can think about maybe how that may align with some of the work you all are doing. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with us, Colorado Car Share is about 25 years young this year, actually. And we are Colorado's first, only, and one of the nation's longest running nonprofit car share organizations. And we're a mission-based organization. Really, our focus is on empowering our community to live car-free or relatively car-free lives and have a positive impact on our health, wealth, and the shared environment. And we kind of do that with a two-pronged approach. We have our education and outreach activity around non-single occupancy vehicle ownership and alternative transportation modes. And then in tandem with that, we operate as a car share provider, service provider. So we're up to close to 60 fleet vehicles now around the Denver Metro, Boulder County, and recently launched up in Summit County. cars with another handful on standby with the Excel program that we're working on. And our vehicles are mostly hybrid electric, and we have a handful of our specialty all-wheel drives with like ski racks and bike racks and some pickup trucks and whatnot. So our car share model is based on a station-based round trip car share model where cars basically live at certain locations. You can kind of think of it as your neighborhood car, which is the most effective way to reduce single occupancy vehicle ownership and use through different types of car share models. And we provide 24/7 access and support for our approximately around 4,000.
Oh, sorry, Peter, you have to unmute yourself. I didn't mean to mute you. Meant to mute. Oh, Peter, can you hear us? Oh, shoot. Peter?
Did you mute me or did I mute me?
No, I meant to mute Alan and I accidentally hit you.
Oh, okay. I was like, I hope I didn't press a button. Awesome. Well, not sure where I left off, but the slide probably says most of it. Accessible to all of our members, cars live in the same locations, and we really focus on our members as local residents and businesses and nonprofits, not so much geared toward visitors and tourists, if that makes sense. Our approach is really to connect our car share locations with complementary mobility options nearby and other transportation connection points. And then through our partnerships, support particularly our mixed income communities where we can then complement other modes of transportation that don't involve necessarily owning your own vehicle for every person in a household. And then where there's funding available, especially in lower income areas, we like to complement that with deep subsidies and discounts like car share credits and discounted rates and whatnot. We set the goal in 2017 to try to be the nation's first fully electric nonprofit car share org, and we started our transition back then, really to help create a scalable and replicable model that can be brought into other areas of the state and beyond. A big push with that was during COVID when we worked with the city and county of Denver to under the CARES Act to launch EV car sharing in a handful of underserviced communities as a part of the pandemic relief, recovery, and resiliency efforts. And really our goal was very much aligned with our mission, which is to sort of bring together the social equity, sustainability, and resiliency in mixed income communities that might not otherwise have access to inclusive transportation options. We've also become a safety net for our community in certain cases during COVID, for example, offering pretty discounted to free credit for like medical healthcare workers, volunteers, vulnerable members of our community. We were also pretty active after the Marshall Fire and offering free car share for folks that were impacted there. So we're always kind of trying to support our communities in the best ways that we can through our partnerships. And as you may be aware, currently working with Excel to launch electrified car share in underrepresented and high emissions communities. I believe Nederland was an applicant for that. And while I understand that the initial application didn't go through on the charge station infrastructure side, fortunately, we have an opportunity to maybe leverage one of the cars from that program and relocate it in this area if that, if it's something that you guys are interested in. This is just a quick slide to show you that how we kind of ensure that we're meeting our mission and serving our community by tracking data points, including through surveys and usage reports, for example, around demographics, income, how well we're doing to help us measure our progress and educate the public. So this is a good example where you see that while we very much work in what I call our free market areas like downtown Denver and Boulder, you can also see that the majority of our family household incomes who are members are in that $50,000 to $74,000 annual income or less range. And then we also like to track the impact that we're having on public transportation, increase in public transportation, biking, walking, reducing single occupancy vehicle ownership. And then we also translate that data into like carbon emissions and other pollution reductions and savings. And yeah, then we translate that into some of the benefits of our round trip car share model in terms of how many people have gotten rid of a car or forego buying a new car, and the estimated vehicle miles traveled reduction and gas saved and carbon emissions and all that stuff. So overall, we can really show that we're having an impact in our communities, particularly in our low to mixed income areas where transportation options are sometimes limited. And yeah, that's it. Happy to take questions about the program now, or if you want, I can also kind of dive into some budgetary considerations, whatever approach you guys would like to do.
I got a few questions.
Yeah, let's take some questions.
This is
Great.
Richard. I have a few questions. I was just sort of thinking through how this would work up here in my mind. I think that we're a little bit different than, the city, for lack of a better word, because if you're living in Denver, Aurora, Boulder, whatever, you could take RTD to various places around your town, right? And I guess theoretically, you could take RTD from the park and ride to the post office or something like that. I don't think many people are gonna be ever doing that, because I think you'll walk or you'll drive. And I think we have probably, I've never seen statistics on this, a higher degree of car ownership per capita than you might have in Denver, although Denver's gonna be pretty high too, I think. So my questions is, what type of rides or uses of the vehicle in terms of time and miles driven per use, would you anticipate would be sort of normal or average for these cars?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have some data on that. It's I don't like to use the average because that can be a little bit misleading. It's like the average is several hours, right? And what we've seen is that, and this is one of the ways that it reduces single occupancy vehicle use, is when people are using our vehicles only when they need them, right? And they're only paying for the time that they need it. They're thinking more strategically about what they're doing. So if you think about having a car at your own house, and you may go to the grocery store and then back home, and then you may go to a doctor's appointment and then back home, and then so it's like A to B to A to C to A to D to A. Here it's more like people are more strategic around A to B to C to D. So that's kind of like, I'd say that the average use is running some errands collectively. And I know it's not applicable in Ned, but like, for example, in the Front Range, where maybe, Uber or Lyft wouldn't really be an option for them to do a multi-hour, multi-trip situation. And in this case, that's the type of situation that we see a lot of our members use it for. People can reserve the vehicles for as short as 15 minutes for up to several days. And the longer trips tend to be more like, in your case, it would be somebody in Ned that needs to get down to Boulder or Denver for the day and run a bunch of errands. Or on the Front Range, it's folks, the longer ones they'll be going, up to the mountains to go skiing or hiking or whatever the case may be. And they may borrow the car for a day or for the full weekend. What we've seen is that in a lot of cases, we're not necessarily a family's first car, but a lot of times we're their second or third car. So they might have their commuter vehicle, but then they use our vehicles for kind of like getting up into the mountains and doing longer trips.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because I was thinking that, to me, there's the use up here for locals, I think, would probably be driving to the transfer station, because it's pretty easy to walk around Nederland. And
Yep.
it's not all that easy to walk with your garbage to the transfer station. So I could see a lot of people using it for that. And also for going into Boulder to go to the doctor or whatever you need to do in Boulder. So that sort of, to me, fits with what you're saying the average use is.
Yep. Well, and sorry, not to interject, but you just got me thinking about something else, which is now you have, direct bus lines between Ned and Boulder. But if you're a member up in Ned, you're a member for all the fleet. So you also now have the option to use a car share vehicle or take the bus down and then use a car share vehicle right near downtown RTD station in Boulder if you need to hop around for a few hours and then bus back. So there's all kinds of ways of using it in ways that save people money, and our members average savings of over $6,000 a year over individual car ownership.
For the electric vehicles that you have, and I have an electric vehicle, so I don't want you to think that I'm anti-electric vehicle by asking this question. Do you run into an issue where someone's gonna drive it around till it's got a very low charge, and then it's essentially unavailable for a few hours till it can get a decent charge, and then subsequent users actually can't use it?
So theoretically, absolutely. In reality, we, knock on all kinds of wood I'm looking around for right now, we haven't had that issue. We're pretty clear with our communications around when you return it, plug it back in. And the ranges are getting longer, as you probably know, with vehicles. I think there's the perception of range anxiety that's more of an issue than the reality of the situation. We also communicate with EVs, like, hey, before you go, make sure the charge point RFID card that we leave in the car is there. You have access to it. If you're going like somewhere far away, look for a charge station. This is the app that you need to have on your phone to find one. So we do a lot of communication and education around a lot of that.
My question really isn't about range anxiety, because I get that. It's just like, and if you drive some EVs to Denver and then back up the hill to here, you might have, even if it was charged at say 80% at the beginning, you might have a 15% charge when you get back, and you plug it in like you're supposed to. An hour goes by, it still may only be like a 25% charge, right? So, and that may or may not be useful to someone who really needs to use that card to like get to a doctor or something in Denver or Bluefield or wherever they're going. And I'm just wondering, and because of the use case I think these cars are going to have here, they really need to be able to drive a fairly long distance and then back. So my question is, do you think that this community would actually be a good community to have an electric or car or cars up here as part of this fleet, as opposed to the gas electric hybrid or just a gas powered car?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Again, we haven't yet run into that, and we are up in Breck and soon to be Frisco and Dillon. I know they're a little bit more dense, but and our goal is we're trying to electrify as quickly as possible, but we are very aware of that consideration. And for example, we know that like all-wheel drive EVs are really expensive, which we're about to look at in the budget. And EV trucks are like insane expensive and totally out of reach. So, what I always try to do, and I don't know that this is feasible for Ned right now, but in theory, you always want to try to have buddy cars, and one of them might be a hybrid or a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle next to like an EV, so that they do have that option for some of those other circumstances.
That's all the questions I got. Thank you.
And Rich, the idea was to have us permanently parked at our level 2 charger. So as one of those spots, but to your point, it's not a fast charger, so it would take a little longer.
And there'd be a sign there saying only car share parking, because people could easily go in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'd have to designate the spot. Yeah. But if I think Peter and I talked about this too, there could be certain times of day that it's available for other parking where, it's being used during the day and it's parked there at night or something like that, but we could.
Yeah, I think one problem you're gonna have at that location is, and I've seen this at, not that where they are now, but where they used to be. And I've seen a lot of other places, is people with internal combustion engine vehicles parking where the charger is. And unless they're gonna be towed away pretty quickly, that puts that charger out of commission and that spot out of commission for this vehicle. And we don't have a lot of tow trucks up here, right? So, yeah, you know, I
Yeah,
think
those are certainly some considerations that if we all want to move forward together, we'll need to talk through some of those logistical items.
yeah, I mean, look, I am an enthusiast for electric vehicles. I have one. I love them. My opinion is, I love this car share idea. I just don't think that we should have a car share vehicle up here that people are really gonna depend upon, that is dependent upon plugging in to a charge point. I wouldn't have a problem with a hybrid, but I really just, I can imagine someone planning to go to a doctor's appointment, reserving the car, into the car, and one, it's not charged, or two, the person couldn't charge it because some idiot in a whatever is parked in that spot. So, and when they returned it, they just parked it somewhere because they had no choice. I mean, I can just see what the member of the public would be going through in their mind, where they can't get to that doctor's appointment or whatever it is down the hill. It's a concern of mine.
And so Peter, I know you talked about having an extra EV available that we could use as a pilot
Yeah.
program. How much might that change if we used a hybrid or?
Yeah, hey, let me show you the budgetary considerations, because if you are, like, we have an opportunity right now because we have a car available, and it's a game changer if you take that away, in terms of what you would have to come up with in order to get a different car there. So that I would have to leave that discussion to you guys. All I can do is give you the information, and then you can, consider, is it worth, what's the risk of, the scenario that was just brought up, which versus, the expense of wanting to do it a different way. So should I maybe go ahead and jump into those costs?
Since I'm the one that brought it up, I am not the kind of person that would want the perfect to get in the way of the good, or even the okay. So,
We put it
if it's gonna make a big difference as to getting this started, or there's a big cost difference or a convenience difference, even though I have those concerns, I would say we go ahead with whatever we can get with what you guys have available, even if that might have, and I guess we would see if I'm right or not.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Can you guys see the budget?
Yeah.
And I'll maybe try to see if I can increase this size a little. No. So here's scenario one, which is kind of like, it's a pretty generalized budget, but it gives you guys a sense of kind of where our costs are coming from. The vehicle procurement in year one obviously is the big one, right? So I put in, for a typical EV all-wheel drive, if you're lucky, the prices are starting to finally inch down a little bit, but with all the Excel programs that we've been doing, you're looking at around 50 grand, right? Now, if you went the hybrid route or something else, obviously you're going to be able to get that cost down a bit. You could probably get like a RAV4 in the 30s, or a Crosstrek or something like that. So that would bring it down. But then, you're getting the car ready and all that. So your total expenses in the first year is in that ballpark of around 64, 65 grand. And then we've also estimated a place like Ned, where we don't have experience with, like, what kind of demand could we get, and with a light to medium use in year one, when we're just getting the word out, there's like that estimated 6,000 in earned income revenue. It depends on how much we subsidize lower income folks as well. So your gap is about 58 grand, again, lower if you go with a different type of vehicle. So, right, that's where there's a shortfall. Now, what we have right now is the second scenario with Excel has already provided the vehicle. They've already paid for all of the make ready costs, getting ski racks on certain cars and snow tires and the tech and graphics and all of that. And then it's just our costs, our staff costs and insurance and maintenance and all that. So if we can move one of the cars that we have for that program, which they've already informally, verbally agreed to, because we had another applicant in another area that pulled out. So we have a couple of extra vehicles to be able to place it up here at one of your charge station locations. Then you're looking at, expenses much lower, our earned income in year one of about 6, and we think we can ramp that up, if we get good education outreach and help with communications from like you all, or Boulder County Housing Authority and different partners, which means that the revenue hole that we need to kind of cover our costs is much more in that kind of $6,000-7,000 range, if that makes sense. So while I totally get it and hear the risk about electrified stuff, it just so happens that we have this opportunity with the free car that's available to pilot through the end of 2024.
And so looking at this, you would want, the town would sort of be on the hook for, it looks like $6,500 to either get a grant or just direct town funds to pay for this?
That would be more or less it. Yeah, I would say there's a couple of ways we can approach it, right? Like we've done it where it's just, and we've done this with Boulder County at Boulder County Housing Authority sites in like Louisville and Lafayette. But it's like, okay, we know that it's probably not going to be huge demand. It's kind of an island area. It's not super urban dense. We think we can get about 6,000, and they pay us. They give us a grant for the other 6,500, right? That's one approach. The second one, like for example, with the city of Boulder that we're working on right now with a pilot program with the Excel partnership, is they wanted to do bi-directional charger from the EV to the building as well, and include car share in it. And what we're doing with them is we're just invoicing them like quarterly based on the difference that we need. So maybe we're only bringing in $4,000, maybe we're bringing in $9,000. So that could fluctuate a little more, and we're literally invoicing them the difference of that. So you can kind of take your choice with that. The no-brainer is to just say, okay, 6,500, we can do that, or get a grant or whatever. The other thing that I always recommend, and again, this is what we've done in all of our mixed income partnership communities, is we'll take that 6,500 and we'll put that directly toward subsidized car share use for your residents. It could be like, for example, in just affordable housing, or just in general, like the first 100 people, and I don't know what the math is, to 65 people who sign up get $100 in car share credit, which is like the Wave $25 app fee, and $75 in car share credit. And so then that money is actually being used to help incentivize your residents to use the program, which is, from our experience, the biggest barrier to get people in car sharing is to just get them in it and get them to try it out. And then they're usually sold pretty quickly. So that's an option there.
Do you allow like out-of-state people to come and sign up and then rent a car the same day? Is that a possible thing?
And run what?
Well, here's the scenario. A lot of people rent Airbnbs up here and take the
Yeah.
bus, and I've talked to them because I've picked them up on the side of the road with their suitcases. They are shocked to learn that there's no Uber or Lyft up here. Shocked. And I could see this being very convenient for someone that has an Airbnb up here to need to get around a little bit, maybe get to Eldora for the day, or whatever it is, to take this car. I certainly would. If I were that, maybe, it wasn't too expensive. And I don't really have a problem with them doing that. It's a use for the car. But let's say someone comes here from Indiana and discovers they don't have transportation, and they figure this thing out. Would they be able to sign up and use it, or is it limited to like local people?
Sorry, I'm trying to find my stop share screen button. There it is. That's a great question. And we've actually talked internally about connecting with Airbnb. The challenge there is, and it's not an insurmountable challenge. It would be more of a, hey, connecting with local Airbnb hosts ahead of time so that they can inform their guests that this is a possibility when they get there. Our challenge is it doesn't happen instantaneously, meaning we have to process their application. We run a background DMV check. to make sure that they have no DUIs or whatever over the last couple of years. And they have to complete an online orientation and get it 100% correct, because it's very important that they know how to use car sharing technology and service. So it takes a couple of days, but if it's something where short-term rental hosts in the area could inform people about this as a possibility ahead of time, like when they book the booking, then heck yeah, it would be an awesome solution for visitors like that.
I guess the only potential downside is someone local would get into play.
That's correct.
Well, you really trying to help local folks. Then I think that's huge disadvantage.
Yeah.
I guess we would,
I think we need to try it out, see where the use is.
Yeah.
If there's not a huge demand for locals, maybe that is the better way to go. But if there is a huge demand for locals, then we'd want to find some way to say, no, you can only rent this vehicle if you live in Boulder or Gilpin County or something like that, you know?
Right. I mean, the last thing you want is everybody to be renting cars in Denver or Boulder and bringing them all up and increasing traffic. Like, the hope would be that there's enough demand to help both visitors and locals that you end up wanting to add a second car or maybe a third car at some point in time.
Yep.
makes sense to me. I mean, I think it's great if like an Airbnb customer could be up here and take the bus up here and not have to rent a car in Denver and be able to use this if they need to do something around town. But Alan's right. You don't want to have Mrs. Smith who needs to go down to go to the podiatrist or something. I can't do that.
Yeah, I don't think we're in how many short-term rental properties do we have?
56.
56.
Mhm.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And that's just in town.
Correct.
That doesn't
Wow.
include Boulder County has a stringent process, but that doesn't mean they're not out there.
Correct.
So it's like people are raising their hands. It doesn't show on
Yeah.
my computer, which is strange.
It looks like Rob and Maddie have their hands raised.
Did you have anything else, Alan?
No, 56 is a big number though. So
Yeah, so I had a question. In your financial analysis, I didn't see any depreciation taken into account. I just wanted to inquire if there were any opportunities for more cash flow from those types of tax advantages.
Well, I was just showing you an operational budget, like a cash budget. So depreciation, while it impacts our P&L statement, it doesn't really help or hurt anything on the cash. That budget's more like, this is the hard cash that we need to survive in a particular location.
Maddie? Do you have a question, Maddie?
Maddie, we can't hear you.
Hear me now?
All right, yep.
Okay, I unmuted myself on the WebEx, but not on my computer, apparently. I'm curious how the logistical side would be handled. Like, would you need someone from the town to kind of be a liaison between Car Share of Colorado and a user? Or, someone is having trouble with their car, is everything just directed to Car Share? And then in those situations, like, what would the town need to be on board to provide as far as administrative or like personnel support?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of, so generally speaking, it's 24/7 straight to our member support. And our fleet managers are in different places. So we have Denver fleet manager, our Boulder guy is our fleet and tech guy. And he actually lives up Coal Creek. So he's it's kind of a convenient location when we have urgencies or, like lockout issues or something like that. But they pretty much can communicate with our staff 24/7. We discourage calling unless it's an emergency after hours, but we do have also nighttime on call after hours support team. We do look to our community partners to help us with some basic things like, just being added to the ChargePoint account as an admin person, so that we can see, like, is a car plugged in? Is it not? If it's not, we need to call the member and say, hey, you just finished your reservation, but it looks like you didn't plug in. Can you go back and plug in? Or, something like that. Or if it's, there's some troubleshooting and the charge station's down, we either need to be able to put in a trouble ticket to ChargePoint or whoever the network provider is, or know who to liaise with at the town in order to do that, like who manages that system. There's also situations that, like, what we're brought up with, like dislocation, where maybe somebody parks in our spot and we have to move. We might, contact someone and say, hey, when that spot's available, can you move it back? We have, in a lot of cases, we have what we call car captains, and those are typically higher use members, and they get free credits for helping us with basic things like that, like moving a car back if it's been parked in the wrong spot, or we call them snow angels. If there's a lot of snow, and they'll go out and they'll remove the snow and they'll get 10 or 20 bucks in car credit. A lot of time these are like maybe people living in lower income residential communities or whatever, or they're just really active and support car share and love to get free car share credit to help out with basic things like car cleaning and moving cars back and forth. So it's kind of a hybrid of working, a little bit with our community partners, but also with our members and our staff.
And then do you guys also provide, and this is top of mind because my car recently broke down in the canyon, but like emergency services so that an individual user doesn't have to have their own AAA account? I saw that insurance was part of the budget.
We have roadside assistance.
Okay.
With the caveat that we do not let our members go outside of a 400-mile radius, because that puts us outside of our roadside assistance service area. But you can still get to Kansas and Wyoming and New Mexico.
Cool. That's all. Those are all my questions. Thanks.
Does anyone else online have any questions?
No, I'm good, Melody.
I have a question about when you reserve the vehicle to use it, how far in advance are you able to do that?
You can do that within 15 minutes of needing the reservation. And you brought up a good point, which is most of our members, most of the reservations happen on the day of. So it's really convenient for people to, do it when they think they're going to need it. And usually people have the flexibility to go to the store, an hour later if it's not available. But you can also reserve it up to a year in advance. So we have some people, like, for example, in our older adult fixed income, like some of our Boulder County Housing Authority communities, where they know they have a medical appointment every other Monday at a certain time, and they'll just book that out like several months in advance for regular schedules. And then they can book, like I said, for 15 minutes up to several days.
Yeah. And then what is the age limit? Because I know, like, rental cars, there's a certain age. So what is the age requirement?
Yep, we don't have an age requirement. We have a 2-year clean driving record requirement. So technically, somebody who's 18, but if they have a 2-year clean driving record, can sign up.
Okay.
What's the cost to the customer, assuming no low income or anything like that reductions?
So it's based on, we have 3 rate plans, and it's based on hourly and mileage. So we have like our Peace of Mind, which is our highest hourly. I think it's like $77.95 an hour plus mileage fees. That's for people who don't use it very often. We have a freewheeling plan. And if you go to carshare.org and then just look at the rates, you'll see the breakdown there. I should have made a slide for that, so apologies for not. But freewheeling, that's a slightly lower hourly and mileage rate. But there's a $12 monthly subscription fee for that. And then there's a third tier, which is for people who do a lot of long distance travel. And that like includes 150 free miles, and they all have daily caps as well. But there's 3 different tiers. The other thing to keep in mind is that when we're working with our affordable housing communities, we typically give them good discounts on all of that stuff as well. And that's something that we absorb as a part of our mission.
Rob.
Yeah, I had a couple quick questions around, is there a way for us to be able to see how this system works before, committing to it? Is there a way for us to like either online or in person go try it out? And then the second what was around use practices. If, there is the Airbnb that comes up and for the weekend rents the car share and then um, it sits in their driveway and generates the revenue, but doesn't necessarily generate the utility that it would if there were multiple users making 1 to 2 hour trips within the region. So I just wanted to ask about those, different types of use applications and how you would size the fleet given that.
Well, to your first question, absolutely. Just sign up and become a member and go try it out. I think we have about 25 vehicles in Boulder, so that would be the easiest way to do it. And then the second, and we can talk about like piloting and testing and all that. We could do stuff up in Ned with the vehicle that we can allocate there, anyways. Um, I'm not sure I quite understand your second question around Airbnb users. Like if they have it just sitting on their driveway, it's not like they might as well rent a car. Like that's not the user scenario. It's not meant for people to have it sitting on a driveway for 24 hours and they're going to be paying a lot and it's not going to be worth it to them. They're going to, most likely become a member and just use it for the, couple of hours at a time or a day at a time that they need it to go explore the region.
Okay, in that case, is there, a type of prohibitive use charging scheme where, if a car is unplugged and, hasn't been quote unquote returned for a period of time when you start um, accruing fees on
Oh
that
yeah.
basis or, yeah.
Oh yeah. We have all kinds of penalty fees. Like and our community polices each other. So like if somebody else shows up and that car's not there, they're on the phone to us and we're on the phone with the previous member and they're risking losing their membership and they're getting charged $1 per minute for every minute that they don't return it on time. So it's incentivized in a way that you're conservative with the reservation to what you need, but you're gonna damn well get it back, or you're gonna call our staff because you're stuck in a traffic jam somewhere, and hoping that the next member hasn't already booked the car for the time that it's due back. In that case, we will not charge penalty fees. We will go ahead and extend their booking for whatever period of time they need it extended for, as long as another member doesn't need it. If it's a situation where they're like stuck in traffic somewhere, then of course that's up to us to then call the next member who may potentially be displaced and say, hey, the guy he's trying to return your car, he's stuck in traffic, he's going to be about 20 minutes late, can we push your reservation back a half hour or something like that. So yeah, we have a lot of those financial and other incentives. Similarly with like leaving a car messy, if people have McDonald's wrappers all over the place or whatever, the next member has to do a check-in and say, hey, this car's a mess. And then it's up to each driver to do that. So they kind of police each other because we're sort of a community of family of members. And then we can go back to the previous member and fine them for messy cars, for example.
Anyone else have any questions?
Looks like, I think he didn't put his hand down.
Yeah.
Miranda, is there anything that we need to do as SAB on this? Do we need a motion? Do we need to recommend something to the Board of Trustees?
I think it's just a discussion item, so I think that just really the question is, do you want to proceed? Do you want more information? How might you want to move forward on this, if at all? And maybe I'll
My
just,
recommendation would be to have this presented to the Board of Trustees.
So, right, but you would need to make a recommendation on what you'd like to see. So it would really have to come, you could move this to an action item if you wanted to and vote on it. You have so you have a budget now coming forward to you about $20,000. So just know that's gonna be a chunk. You've already committed 10 of it to the students, leaving you with about $10,000 left. So this would be 6 of your 10
For.
for SAB to use. Because the board,
What's the period of time that we're talking about?
for 2024.
Oh, 20.
Yeah. So I think you just have to assess, is this a financial priority to you?
Yeah.
Because I can assume, and I don't want to speak for the board, but maybe trustee Sterling, you can jump in. You know, we're so close on the budget. We're not looking to add in new line items. It's gonna come out of what already exists.
100%. Yeah.
I personally can't think of a better way that SAP could use its money than to try to have a car share program in there, but that's just my personal opinion. So, what's our sort of time frame with car share to let them know whether we want to do this?
Until the car disappears. I mean,
So
it's this weird free opportunity that we have now through 2024. Like the car's ready, the tech's installed, the snow tires are on it. You know, it's one of those situations where, as you guys know, because Ned applied to the Excel program and it didn't work, there was another applicant who was approved and then had to pull out. So we have this unique opportunity right now. We're fine either way. We're happy to do it or not. I personally was pretty bummed that the Ned application didn't go through and we weren't able to do it there, because we've always wanted to be up there and want to help the community, and we're a Boulder County based nonprofit. But as of right now, we have that availability to launch, as soon as we can sort out like the parking space and the charge station access.
And I'm assuming there's a contract that has to be signed between you guys and the town?
Not really. I mean, if you guys need a contract, we're happy to do it. We've gone in myriad different directions with different communities. The main thing for you is ensuring that we would get you added to our additionally insured and giving you a certificate of insurance that indemnifies you from any liability and stuff like that. Those are the kind of the main legal things.
Well, I would move, it's appropriate
To make this an action item.
make this an action item.
Start there. Don't make your motion.
That we move
All right.
this.
So I had one further question. I believe that that economic had some projections about utilization, and if those projections were, incorrect in one direction or another, what's the liability to the town of Nederland to fill the gap, or otherwise not need to fill as much of the gap?
Yep. So that's why I proposed the two different scenarios. It's like the gamble or the no. From our experience moving into new, less dense communities, right? Like Nederland or Louisville, Lafayette, where they're island community residential areas and stuff like that. Like, we know that it costs us about $1,000 to $1,200 per vehicle location per month in order to survive. In that first scenario for year one, I thought we could, do maybe half that. Like, we'd be willing to risk that we can pull in half that, $500-$600 a month in earned income from member usage. And if we totally, overestimated, then that's our, then we have to absorb that. And so that's why I was saying the option is the town can commit to putting the other half down to cover that. And then the risk is more or less on us to make sure we get at least half. And if we do better than half, then great for us. Or the scenario with the city of Boulder, where we know what we need and we do quarterly usage, check in the revenues, and then we invoice the town for that gap. So it's a little bit of a risk or a gamble either way you want to do it. It's just like, do you want to just take it out of the budget and say, okay, here's $6,000 and be done with it, and then the rest of the risk falls on us? Or are you willing to do it the other way, but know that if we only make $200-300 in a month, then you're going to end up paying more than $6,000 over the course of the year?
Could be double if no one uses it. So,
Or it could be less if we do quarterly and more people use it than we expect.
Absolutely.
And
And that's a good approach to take, to incentivize all of us to really work together to engage with the community on education outreach and communications.
Yeah.
Right? Because a big part of the success of this program, it's like it's up to us, but it's also up to you. Like we have to work with our partners to really get the word out to residents. Are there events happening? Are there, flyers or any kind of email communications or whatever?
Yes.
yeah, thanks for speaking to that. I think we should just keep this in mind as we SAB and bringing this to BOT have, fiduciary responsibilities for these funds.
All right. Rich did make a motion. Is there anybody who wants to second that motion?
To move this to an action, just a reminder.
Just to move it to an action.
Correct.
Alan seconds. All right. So we will call a vote of SAB members. I'll start with those of us in the room. Rich,
Yes.
Alan, myself is a yes. Nicole
Yes.
and Rab. Oh,
Yes.
and Maddie.
Yes.
I forget the call user.
I'm not sure who our calling user is, because I think it was Rab. But Rab, you seem to be on your computer now.
Oh,
Or maybe you're on the phone still, I don't know.
But he has a name, calling user number 1.
Yeah, who's joined us on the phone? Is that a SAB member by chance?
anyway, motion passes.
You can make a motion to recommend approval.
So this is now an action item.
Right, so here's my recommendation for consideration of the action item would be to have 2 discussions. One, whether or not we want to suggest to the Board of Trustees that they approve this, and then 2, what the financial model is amongst the 2, and that, because if we don't vote yes on 1, then 2 is right.
Agreed.
So
I like it.
I don't need to talk anymore, but that's what I.
I like it.
Do you all need me still, or should I leave you to your business?
I think, Peter, it might be good for you to stick around just in case questions come up, if you don't mind.
Okay.
so I think if we forward it, their discussion, if then publicize it to the community. I guess that's part of it. Feedback. I don't see it being able to move this. The recommendation is there, we have to improve it. I think that's unlikely, given the budgetary situation. And
Hey, Alan, it's very difficult to hear you speaking. We can't hear you online, what you're saying.
get over next to that, maybe.
It will, it will come out of your zero waste. So SAB has a zero waste budget now. It will come out of that, Alan. So it's not a matter of, I guess, I don't believe that the board would deny it. It's just understanding that it's coming out of the fund they allocated to you all as a sustainability advisory board.
Okay.
I
I'll
think
be back.
with the overall discussion right now and the kind of feeling in the room about money of bringing it up right now to the BOT, if that's what we're gonna do.
I mean, maybe Trustee Sterling,
We
you
wait
can,
till after
again,
the budget
it's your
passes.
funds. Yes, maybe wait until after it passes, but they're your funds to use as you recommend. Of course, the BOT has to approve it, but they're gonna look to you to decide how you wanna use your $20,000. But I don't know, Nicole, if you feel, that's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much that. I mean, we'll give our feedback or whatnot. And like Miranda said, I don't think that there would be any type of denial. But yeah, they're your funds. That's why we allocated them.
Even if you did a motion tonight, we wouldn't, there's not enough room to bring this before. It would go in January. I mean,
No,
it-
it'd have to be in the new year, Miranda. Yeah, or sorry. Yeah, you already said that. Okay.
Please. I agree, after the budget passes, and we've just got a lot going on. But yeah, I mean, the point is that that's zero waste is earmarked for you to decide how you want to spend those funds.
A question to Peter would be we can't actually get approval until January, is that even feasible considering that the vehicle is ready now? Because that's the vehicle we're discussing, right? Otherwise, it would have to be like a newly purchased and set up vehicle.
Which would increase the cost.
When is your budget approval timeframe?
It'll get approved on the 2nd, and I'm happy to bring it to the board on the 16th or the 19th, whatever that meeting is,
Of
of December. And so that once the budget passes, you would be asking the board to, once the budget passes, you can engage. So Peter, we wouldn't be able to engage any sooner than January 3rd.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be an issue with getting a car up there in January. Given that the pilot through Excel goes through 2024, it would be, in the spirit of thinking that we're going to work together, it might be helpful if we start going through the sort of the logistical administrative steps to get it up there, thinking that it may happen. And even if we get a car there and then it doesn't happen, we could just say, okay, well, sorry, the car was only there for 5 days and we have to pull it because it wasn't approved. But, it's, to us, we'd be happy to start going through the steps to get it up there. But specifically to answer your question, I don't think the car is going to disappear between now and early January.
And I have a question. Is it an EV or not?
Yes, that's the only option.
Yes.
It is an EV.
That's the only one that's available for free.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
And
know. What is it?
Yeah, I'd have to look because I think the allocation is coming from the School of Mines allocation. And I believe one of those cars was also a decent range, all-wheel drive with ski racks and maybe bike racks. So it would be like a BZ 4X or a Subaru Solterra or a Hyundai, I forget what theirs is. But it would probably be a pretty schwanky car that has all the tricks.
Rep,
What was that?
you have another question? Rep,
your hands up.
Oh, sorry about that, unintentional.
just making sure. I mean, I think it's cool. I am more excited about like longer term, bigger vision, like when you can take a car share over to Blackhawk and then there's a car share over in Blackhawk and you can drive it back here or over to Estes Park and then back and you can trade around. Of course, that's when your organization is not just limited, to where you're limited to now. But I think this peak to peak region is kind of a cool place to start it at. Have we talked at all about, and this is just because they have those nice chargers up there, working with Eldora and keeping it at Eldora or close to there, because the bus does go out there. They do have the nice fast chargers. They have way more parking spots. You're not going to be dealing with, there's a big truck parked in the way of this charger because it's right in front of town hall.
I think the issue with that is, it's gonna be, one of the uses of this is gonna be people in town that are gonna wanna walk to it and drive it into Boulder.
Yeah.
And two is, in the summer, I don't think the bus is going up to Eldora, so we would need to have a separate, situation. So I would think it would just be a lot easier logistically and administratively to have it in one spot in the center of Nederland. And, I think there will be a fair amount of people that drive it up to Eldora though.
Yeah.
And I think that's, yeah, so.
Yeah,
I'll just say from our perspective, we absolutely want to work with the ski resorts, but right now we would have zero interest in doing this at Eldora versus downtown Ned.
I think that we probably have a lot of low-income people or people who struggle to pay for cars. Cars are really expensive. And I think it's a great idea to have it here in town. If somebody wants to take it to Eldora, they can. But I would think we'd have higher demand for going places like Boulder for doctor's appointments and you know, the bus is great and it is competition for the bus. But sometimes it's just not practical to go to Boulder, go to 3 or 4 different places by bus, particularly if you're elderly or partially disabled or anything like that. So I think it could be a great community resource.
Yeah, I just love to see it ideally in like the RTD parking lot rather
Yeah.
than the visitor center parking lot,
That
because
makes
it's
more
so
sense.
packed all the time. And,
I agree.
you know,
I think that would be great, but there's no
There's
charge
no
there. And also then we'd have to get the agreement of RTD. And I can't even imagine how long that would take.
We've been trying for a couple of decades.
man. Okay.
Where's the charger that we haven't installed yet? Is that going in the visitor parking lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the fast charge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that will.
That's the level 3.
Correct.
Yeah, the level 2s are there now.
Correct.
So,
The one thing that the board will have to consider though is, you know, they are gonna charge for the EV chargers and this would take one offline. So that's a decision the board will have to make, is that this would
Have you given them their updated budget numbers yet, though?
not, was we
For
will
what?
on the 19th.
Yeah, so you're just gonna not include that one.
No, I wrote a note that we would take one of the level 2s. Right?
Uh-huh.
Offline,
it would be partially unavailable.
right.
But the problem is making it partially unavailable. It's how are we gonna know if the person who has taken the share car needs to drive it back when, you know, so-and-so is charging their car? And how would we resolve that? So I'm not sure it could be partially available.
We need to ask ChargePoint, like, is there a way? to get
Yeah,
that?
there's a way that you can like have one port, you know, exclusive to car share and not the general public. I mean, I know, for example, at the Boulder County office in downtown Boulder, we can't even use their charge port between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. It just won't let us. They only let it be used for county staff and fleet. But then in the evenings and on weekends, it allows us to charge our vehicles.
So I think it's gonna have to be reserved for this vehicle. And reading the very in-depth article in the newspaper today
Mhm.
about the budget, it seems to me that the board already knows all about the charge point and the money and everything. So, they will ask questions about that and I have no idea what they would say.
Mhm.
One question I have, Peter, is if we went with, let's say, the safe money route where we knew exactly what we were paying for year one, and it ended up being extremely profitable for you guys and, you know, it was a net money maker. And after the first year or some period of time, could we switch to we all share in the benefit of making money on it model?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in the past, we've done a cost share, revenue share. So it's like, if we get up to over $1,200 a month, that makes a location viable, then a percentage of that would go back to our partner. And that's an option where like we all work really hard during year 1 to 2, you know, to get the word out, and it just becomes a hit and everyone loves it and uses it. And we're surviving there, then, you know, then for sure we could switch over. You know, I suggest we just review it all together annually and see what makes the most sense moving. Or if we're like, you know, hey, this car is doing okay. We're not quite there, but we're pretty confident that it's going to be there within the next year or so. Then at that point, we'll probably say, you know what, don't even worry about pulling anything out of your budget or looking for an external grant. It's just that first year or two coming into new areas where there's just so many uncertainties that we can't take that big of a financial risk.
So maybe more potential revenue than just charging for.
Well, it depends on the way it works. If we went with the sort of, we're both sharing the risk profile, it could be a lot more revenue. I really doubt that's gonna happen. If I were on the board, I would not assume there would be more revenue. I would assume we would pay everything.
Especially not the first couple of
Right.
years, yeah.
So my suggestion would be if we decide to recommend this to the board, that we recommend for the time being to go with the safe revenue model where we pay the 60, whatever, $100 it is for year one until I will certainly no more than year one because we wouldn't have a budget to go past that anyway. And we revisit with ChargePoint at some point on or at that year-end timeframe to see what revenue model we would want to go with in the future, if any, because it could be a total failure. But that's something we.
Yeah, I think I'd like to check it out in end of third quarter, okay, after summer's over, peeper season's over, how are we doing this year? Is this something we can do again next year, for a reasonably?
Yep. And we keep an eye on our locations constantly anyways. So even if it's like, wow, it looks like this location's going to do well, the demand's really high, we might even get to a situation where I wouldn't say we would be investing fully in a new car ourselves, but it might be like, okay, we have another car somewhere else that's kind of end of fleet life, but it's still in good condition. Rather than selling it, would you guys want us to put a second car up there? It's a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle, and that addresses some of the concerns that we've talked about tonight. Those are all, unknowns, but possibilities in the future.
Yeah, cool.
Should we have a vote?
Motion first.
We gotta make a
Okay,
motion
motion
for
now.
whatever our recommendation is.
Motion number one is that we recommend to the Board of Trustees that we go ahead with this electric vehicle from CarShare, devoting one of the EV spaces in the community center, or not, the visitor center parking lot to it, and that this be really considered a trial program for a 1-year period or less if we determine that we can't go forward with it for whatever reason happens, and that we reassess it at the end of the third quarter to determine what we will do going forward. That is my motion, and then we'll have my intention is, if we say yes on this, we have another motion as to which financial model we build.
I'll second that. So we will call a vote, and I will start with those online this time. Nicole,
Yes.
Maddie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
myself is a yes.
That would be
Rich.
pretty unusual for me to vote against my own motion, so yes.
And the motion passes.
I have another motion.
There we go.
Our second motion is that we recommend to the Board of Trustees the fixed sum financial model going forward until we have an assessment of how that's working, and that we.
Second.
Okay,
Fixed for year one.
yep.
Yeah. All right, we'll call a vote. Nicole,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
myself is a yes.
Yes.
And Rich is a yes. And that passes.
So I think we would ask that on the 19th, staff members be present. You also have rights of nature on that agenda.
Yes.
So
That's a
it's
Tuesday.
a Tuesday.
It's a
Tuesday 19th. We'd ask that staff members be present to present this to the board. And
I can be.
I don't know if Peter, you're also available, but could be helpful.
I think we also have our next SAB meeting the night before, right? So we can talk about it again.
Yeah.
And maybe Peter, you and Leah could take that offline and just see, or just at least get our team as up to speed as possible.
Sure. Yeah, and Peter, if you could send me that slide with the financials so that we can include that.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. That was great.
Yeah, thank you.
So much. Appreciate your time.
Now you can leave us if you want.
Okay. All right.
Peter.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
And I'm sorry, I misspoke. All of the EV charger money is going to SAB. So it's actually the tune of 33,000 that's available. So you've committed 10, you've now committed another
After
6,500.
jacking up the price?
You get, if you are the beneficiaries of the EV chargers, it drops into zero waste.
Net or gross?
Oh, is that potentially a conflict of interest then?
Not really.
No, we don't take it personally. It's just part of our budget.
It's just, you officially have money, like, cause ProSap has access to funds, SAP has never had access to funds. And so between a new sustainability permit fee we've come up with to try to fund Leah and this EV charger, SAP officially has access to quite a bit of money. I think the tune of $64,000. But a chunk of that goes to your fabulous sustainability coordinator.
And that could potentially be more with the DC fast charger, right? Because we are.
Yeah.
Correct, actually, that revenue kicked up from 30 to 75,000.
Is this is net, right? I mean,
Yes.
Okay. There are costs associated with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll have a charge, we're still trying to sort out charge point, like how much is charge point gonna cost us, and then, of course, your sustainability coordinator comes out of that. But those are the only two commitments, expenditure wise, that are coming out of zero waste, are your sustainability coordinator, the commitment to the students, if that goes through, and now car share.
Great.
So Miranda, the fee, the sustainability fee that we were charging, that was to cover the 10 hours extra of, right, and then the grant covers the rest of it. So,
Cover the rest of it, because we're looking to increase Leah to, where we are bringing a match of 31,800 instead of the 18,750.
sorry, say that again, you broke up.
Because the grant is only 15,000, and we're
Right.
looking to bring a match of 31,800. So, and the sustainability permit fee only covers a portion of that, and then zero waste line item covers the rest.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
But I'm gonna bring, when I come back on the 19th, I'm gonna bring a more of a breakdown for the sustainability coordinator, and we'll talk a little more about that when we get to your executive session. Seeking a little feedback on that.
Okay, anything else on car share program? Great, let's move on. Did we want to discuss next steps on the mobile e-waste presentation? Like, do we wanna discuss anything about it now? Do we wanna bring it back next meeting? Do we wanna bring it back in a couple months?
Can they be here next meeting or are they done?
They're done.
Could we ask them? Everyone does this now, to do like a little video that we can watch where they explain it and maybe have like, I don't want to say like a TikTok or something like
Yeah.
that, but something like that where they sort of give us a little presentation of what it is and we can actually just watch that at our leisure prior to the meeting and have that information.
And I have sent her a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what they showed us so far, I thought looked good.
Yeah, if anything, I could jump on a quick meeting with them and just record it.
Yeah. One question I have is this something that would be more appropriately done by Boulder County at the transfer station as opposed to something that the town does?
That was the goal. I actually reached out to Cody and Cody was like, I don't have space. Again, pretending like this was going to be a
Yeah.
thing. Cody said, I don't have space for that.
Yeah.
So then it ended up coming back to the old town, or the town shop lot. That's not our preference. We don't want people driving back into our shop because it's not secured. So the preference would be eventually, if this were ever to be a thing, it would happen at the transfer station.
Has the zero waste subcommittee discussed it?
No,
Then that should be.
we have to.
Yeah, that should be the next step.
And, yes, and Cody was promoted, so he's actually going to have a
Oh.
replacement person,
What was he promoted?
director of something, whatever it is.
How much space would this take?
It's a shipping container.
Oh, valid, okay,
Yeah.
I mean, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. That's how they designed it,
okay.
but it doesn't have to be that large.
A full-size shipping container?
Yeah.
Yeah. somewhere.
Or we probably wouldn't need that much space. We could get away with a 20-footer or something.
Yeah. But for the sake of what they were designing, it wasn't gonna work at the transfer station, so they used our kind of vacant lot for it.
You mean the one that Team Sync is gonna put the,
No, like where our actual public workshop is,
Oh.
and just, we've got
Like
heavy
next to
equipment, we've got stuff, I mean, we just don't want people driving back there because, well, the building itself is of course locks and we just have heavy equipment.
okay.
Do we need an action item on that? Or?
Nope.
No, I just wanted to know if we should bring it back on another agenda.
I guess I just no
Or
one will be
we're
able to
gonna-
talk about it. So I'll ask them to maybe they can jump on and answer your questions and we can just like record it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we'll follow up, so we'll maybe talk about this in a month or two, depending. Okay, number 3 is just a quick one, that there was an update on those numbers from Pi, like we requested with that.
Move that later though,
I flipped it.
if that's all right. Just because it's not time sensitive and I'd rather get to the other items first since we're at 8:06. And I'll skip it.
Okay, I don't have her agenda, I just have the agenda that I made.
Okay, I flipped it.
But I
back.
was really just gonna mention, was there anything specific you wanted to point out? Otherwise, here's the data and kind of move on.
Sure, I'll roll it all into my,
Okay.
update.
Perfect.
I'm gonna start with the climate pollution reduction grant, because that's coming up really quickly. So, that's part of the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, and the, Dr. Cog. Is everyone familiar with Dr. Cog? Okay, Dr. Cog and the Colorado Energy Office were both awarded the planning grants as the first phase of that, and then the second part is the implementation grants, which is $200 to $500 million estimated. So it's a lot of money. That's statewide, except for Dr. Cog, which is the Denver metro area, which does include Boulder County. So there have been a number of stakeholder meetings about the best way to apply for those funds. I think there's been 7 stakeholder meetings at this point, to try and collect what the priorities are for each municipality. There's a focus on equity and disadvantaged communities, which we do fit into in most definitions. But that will be decided by mid-December, and Tom Mahold and I have submitted the survey, which Alan, you emailed about right before this meeting. And also I'm about to throw in the chat if anyone wants to.
Oh, I closed it.
Oh, sorry. You're gonna have to email. Oh, I will, it's in my report. And also in that email, I replied to Alan. So never mind, I won't throw it in the chat, but if anyone wants to give public comment on what priorities are, and we've submitted as a town, but if you have any thoughts on how the funds will best be used, feel free to provide some input there. The main criteria is greenhouse gas reduction. Of course, it's about 24%, 26%, something around there of the actual grant. And so they're looking at what has the most impact, but also collaborating so that they don't compete with each other, because you can't apply for the same region or the same purpose. So right now the top goals are probably something in building electrification, maybe heat pumps, workforce development to get contractors who have the skills to do that. Let's see, what were the other? Possibly on the CEO side, augmenting the Homes and Kira funding, which is electrification upgrades that are coming out February of next year. So because that, it's a good chunk of money, but it doesn't cover the cost of upgrades. And so supplementing that program is the top runner for the CEO right now. But basically, we can't apply separately as a town. We're either part of a regional grant through Dr. Cog or CEO, or a sub-award through the state funding. And so that's basically where we are there. It's going to be a super fast turnaround too. So March is when their climate action plan is due, and then they have 1 month to submit the grant. So everyone's sweating about that timeline. Super fast. So we may need to submit a letter of support or something. We're just going to watch for that, but just wanted to give an update because it's a ton of money that we really want to get a piece of. And in all these stakeholder meetings, in every opportunity that I get to speak, I have asked about making sure that we're included. because we could kind of fall towards the wayside, and I've been assured, at least by the CEO, that they are making sure that it's accessible to smaller towns. If there's a match, that there's funding for us, that we wouldn't have to come up with a match. If there's a grant writing, part of that gets support there too. But any public voice that is part of that too, is helpful. So you want to go in there on the .cloud website and put some public comments, that would be great. That's really the gist. Any questions about that?
One thing I found that was really interesting and exciting about it is it overlaps with a lot of our town goals.
Yes.
Things we were already doing, like, accelerating dwelling units, trying to improve our code to make more affordable housing available. And also, the energy code, we just updated it once, and we want to look at updating our energy code again. So I saw overlap with things we're already trying to do in terms of providing housing and doing it in a sustainable way. And I think if we, take that angle and say, we do want to do more sustainable, affordable housing within our town boundaries. And rather than greenfield development, we're talking about building like 13 units in the near future. That fits in really well with what they're looking for. If it is coupled with reducing greenhouse gas as we build.
Yeah.
So.
And even the pieces of that, if it's not even, multifamily housing specifically, but heat pumps and workforce development would also fit into that. So they're trying to reach as many people as possible. There might not be totally specific to that, but there have also been, apparently I forgot what the project is, the passenger rail project was also a top contender, which I don't know that would really affect us. But we also don't get a say in what they actually choose. But because part of the grant application requires disadvantaged communities to be taken into account, hopefully that will win out over a project like that. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Anyone online?
So you're saying, having some of us in the public supporting our comments, hopeful.
Yeah, and Dr. Cog has asked for more comments, right? Like they've taken input from all of the town reps, but getting more public input. And I'm not suggesting that we blast this out to the town of Nederland because that's a little much, but like the SAB board, that would be great if you provide some, like these are our top priorities. We really support these initiatives just to get more votes and make sure that we are represented in whatever path we choose.
Do we want to make a statement as a Senate? Or the individuals on the Senate?
Well, I think it's individual. I don't know that. I mean, I've submitted for the town of Nederland on their survey, and Tom has submitted for technically the BOT, I guess. So I don't know.
So we could just identify ourselves as SAB members.
Yeah, you can do that.
Or a community champion for sustainability.
Yes, that's great. And then for the Masters of the Environment capstone program, I'll just go through the items that you have here. We did submit an updated proposal with feedback from the Colorado Tourism Office based on their prompt, and we should have the notification on whether or not we're a finalist December 11th. So a couple more weeks before we
Just
hear about
before the
that.
next meeting too, yeah.
Okay. Yes, so we're here soon. And then we are applying for the Boulder County Sustainability Matching Grant. Again, that's due next week. So I'm hard on that right now.
Do you need any support on finishing that?
I don't think so. I think it's mostly just reporting on, what I've done this year. And yeah, so it's actually like a really.
It's one of the
More
easier
grant
grant processes.
Yes,
that's
I'm really
for sure.
relieved. Like a couple worksheets. It's pretty good. Yeah. And then I guess we can go into the pie data now. So, pie submitted the, the new data that was requested by SAB to not take RECs into account. And I won't go through the whole spreadsheet because I probably couldn't translate that super well either anyway, but basically most of our municipal energy is through renewable energy through the Oak Leaf Community Solar Program. So the gap there is actually really small if we're looking at it that way. On the commercial side, though, there is more of a gap. So we only are at 11% renewables on that side. So actually going back to the municipal side, they are going to help with an audit for our our water treatment facility and see where we have some opportunities and help with funding potentially, just to fill that last bit of gap. We are really close to 100% renewable technically on that side. On the commercial side, they've also offered to help fund some of that outreach in partnership with PACE, who already has a great relationship with our businesses. We're kind of putting Excel on the, you know, we're not putting their name right on the front of that flyer, for, of course, like PR purposes. But they are going to fund some outreach, flyers and mailers to our businesses about the programs that are available to try and close that gap. Any questions about that data before I move on to the rest of my update?
Well, I guess I had one question. You know, we had a great response to the program they had. I'm pointing in the name of it now. It's
The Renewable Connect.
Renewable Connect.
Yeah.
And then I think at a previous meeting, you said somebody in the LV, they have decided to make that a expensive program. Before it was free.
Yep.
If you wanted renewable, you just sign up. Got something like help reduce your electricity bill.
Yep.
In spite of it, renewables. And then have they rolled out their new program, or when is that supposed to happen?
No, I think in the last meeting, I think it was a couple of meetings ago, they said they didn't have the details of the new program rolled out yet, but it will probably still.
Yeah, and you can see on that spreadsheet that the commercial side really responded in a big way. So I think there's a lot of upside. They have a decent program. I'm wondering if we should be squawking at this point about the fact that you're not sticking with something like that. You know, because that was.
I think that would be a very quiet squawk.
I know it's just one business, but the Busey Brew solar went up this year, right?
And that was through PACE.
Yeah, and so that'll at least bump us to like 12% instead of 11.
Yes, yeah,
maybe,
it would be great to see the data from this year.
Yeah.
Because right now they're just estimating, right? You can see they
Yeah.
have 2022 data only.
Mhm.
But that should be a good bump. And we're trying to get the newer businesses on the next tour also. So the new Diner Bar, and Christian Vanek's new businesses also as he's building, hopefully should get some renewables in.
I mean, maybe the way to squawk is to say, previously it was such a great partnership, and it was. They worked with us really closely. You know, we walked around the whole community. We got all information, and that was a great win-win. So why not have it be a win-win again?
Well,
Do they want to keep looking good or not?
But, so it's tough because in Colorado, they might not look good. On the national scene, Excel is one of the leaders in renewable energy. And so at the national corporate level, they feel like they don't need to do anything to look good. They are one of the better energy companies out there.
Yeah.
And that's what I've heard from the Excel employees, that work there.
yeah. And they,
Challenging to work with.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they just proposed, I forgot what it's called, Clean Energy Plan or something, where they are proposing phasing out a lot of coal plants, building more renewable energy, more energy storage, but also new natural gas plants and part of that will lead to an increase in rates for all customers.
The environmental community is very upset about the new natural gas.
Yes.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, so they're saying like, I'm.
They're asking for a letter of support and I sent it to Lee and I was like,
No.
And they said no.
No,
and it was not, we didn't bring it to you. I mean, I just, yeah.
No.
But we didn't feel like that was an appropriate letter of support for the town to write for itself.
But the point is, I don't think that they would care about offering a premium renewable program because in their minds, it's necessary to increase the infrastructure to have better renewable energy. They don't care about making it more affordable for customers. They want to make more profit and cover their costs. To Rich's point, I don't think we can squawk about that. I mean, we can squawk, but they don't care.
They're not listening.
And really, we're fortunate to get the little bits, I think, that they're giving us in.
Yeah, I mean, a free EV here to like test out a car share program is pretty
It's
cool.
pretty dope.
No, they have been pretty generous with us,
I totally hear your complaints though.
but,
Yeah.
you know.
Any other questions about the pie data before we move on?
I'm just happy that we are at like 22% on the residential side. Like, that's a big increase considering the pandemic we just went through, from 14 to 22%, from 2020 to 2022. That's significant. That's after Renewable Connect.
Mhm.
That's not with a huge program going on. I mean, we had, what, 30 people sign up for the solar thing. We did. So that can't be that full.
I've seen a lot of solar arrays.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I like it. I like that. That's really cool.
I think given the size of our community, we're doing really well.
Yeah. So on that note, also, our community solar garden through Pivot Energy is now connected to the grid as of early November. And yes, subscribers will start to receive credits in the next 30 to 60 days. So I'm awaiting a report from them on how many people have actually signed up. It will unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, include anyone in the zip code of Nederland, not necessarily in town.
Okay.
So that
Yeah.
makes it a little harder to track, right, for our goals, but. All right, you should.
Nuts and bolts.
No, I'm just thinking, I'm
We
shaking my head in that.
estimate so
I'm
much of it.
perfectly happy for people outside the town boundaries.
Sure.
I mean, I understand it for accounting purposes and whatnot, but to me, it's just like,
Yeah.
anybody is good. Frankly, if they're Timbuktu, it's good. Right?
Right.
We have to do the same thing when we do our greenhouse gases though, right?
Yes.
Extract from a larger data set, so it's.
That's true. Yeah. So I should hopefully have that before the next SAD meeting, that count of how many people we have
Cool.
in that program.
Should I switch over from the other one? I'm still signed up with. the other
Are
one.
you getting credits?
I don't know yet. I don't think it's online yet.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We've gotten the separate bills and everything that they were talking about, and it's not.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that the company is not doing very well, and so
Yeah,
I haven't been in touch. They haven't responded to my last emails.
yeah.
So yes, switch to this new one and their savings,
Well, I'm also on Renewable Connect currently, and
Okay.
the other one kicks in, so really anyway, we're
Oh.
fine,
But you-
but.
A good point. Is there value in reaching out to those that signed up for the other and saying, hey, just so you know, you could, if you haven't seen anything,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
could.
the projected savings were slightly higher,
Mm-hmm.
so we could argue
Mhm.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's worth it.
I think so. I would hate to see people like on the old program, just like waiting and then we run on
Yeah.
a whole new one and they have no idea they could switch.
well, I think there's like, what? Is it 14 of those 39 that are through the energy office though? And so those people, yeah, so those people probably wouldn't want to
Sure,
switch,
sure.
right?
I don't
But
think
the
they're
ones
in
that weren't.
that.
Oh, they're not in
It's a
that
separate
39.
program. Yeah.
Because I had reached out to her for that number and I think that was like 14 people.
Okay, yeah, it's separate
Okay.
program and
So then we actually had like 50 people.
Yes.
For that program.
that type of thing, yeah.
Okay.
And when I asked, now I can't even remember what the last company's name was. They're dead to me.
Yeah.
But they did say they couldn't account for those other people because it's outside of their system.
Yes,
It's probably worth
Right.
I mean, I hate to ask people to sign up again for something they've already done,
Mhm.
I
but
think the answer is Miranda could go door to door.
Done. All right. Hello. I just think maybe just giving them the option, alert them. Yeah, it's amazing. Just like alert them, like, hey, we know you signed up for this, just so you know, yeah, it's been stalled. So if you're interested, you could.
Yeah, you could do this.
do we even, I don't even know that we have a list.
We don't.
Who those people.
That was my wishful thinking that we had a list.
Shoot, yeah, maybe.
What was that company?
I don't even know when the last time they emailed me to say, sorry, we're still delayed
Oh,
is.
Yeah. was
It
a
would have
long
been
time ago.
months ago.
Well, I'll try and find it and see if I can get a list from the companies so we can reach out to them.
If anything, or a post, just like.
Yeah, a social post, yeah, that Peter could do.
Okay.
That's sort of embarrassing, I guess, that we promoted that program, but anyway, on to a better one. Also, the rooftop solar campaign is going very well. It was 8 residents, now we're down to 7, but they just reopened the program and they have room for more people, so we may get some more subscribers this year. But the installer they chose has been really great. They've already signed a ton of contracts. We're ahead of schedule. So that will also add to our data for this year, right? At least
Yes, yeah.
a few more households that are on this program, the
Definitely.
Bulk program. And we're planning that one for next year also. So let's see, go back. We haven't heard yet about the CFI grant that was submitted by Boulder County on our behalf. That was for the EV chargers.
Mm.
We're still waiting on that. And then Zero Waste Subcommittee. Larry resigned as the chair / resigned from the committee, so we won't have a chair for a while, which is fine. I will continue to lead that coordination at least for a bit, and then Karina will step in and help with that a bit too. More on that later. But and I just found out that the Recycling Resources Economic Opportunity Grant is going to sunset this year. Unfortunately, there's one more mini grant. Yeah, we were planning for the big fall grant. But I met with the TASP advisors, and they let me know that we have one more mini grant that's due in January, unfortunately. So we're gonna try for that, and then it will be rolled into the Front Range Waste Diversion Program, which may have better opportunities for us, but that does kind of change our plans with what we were going for. So. Soon, but the grant opportunities are a little different than what we were planning for. That, and then PACE will be back here also on December 11th. December 11th is a big day to go around the businesses again, and then he will also be up sometime during the spring. We should have the Excel flyers and all those things up by the 2nd. The strength trip that he was taking up here to advertise the Excel programs. And then I think that the end of it.
Should we open it for public comment? I know we have a member of the public. I don't know if he has any comments or questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I was very intrigued by the car share thing. My son and I were going to start a taxi service up here, but we're going to scratch that now.
Hey, Jim.
I
So we
think
need it.
should. I mean, we still have peaceful rides up here, and I think that they could use some competition.
No, I was just questioning whether everybody I know has a car. If they don't have a car, they have a relative that can take them somewhere. And then the Nederland area senior group, we have you know, car service. People can have a ride if they want. So I'm just wondering how successful that's going to be, but.
I think those are good points. I think we're going to see how successful it's going to be. I think that we are going to get a fair amount of people with, on Airbnbs up here using these cars. That there are more than you think. And there are an incredible number to me that take the bus from DIA to Nederland. And I would never have occurred to me that people would do that, but they do that. And they try to walk up past my house, up to the top of Tejas. And, it's frankly a safety issue with me, and it annoys me that they don't warn the people. But I think that people like that will be using this vehicle. If it's a failure, we can say no, and I don't think we have to wait a year.
Yeah.
But I think that those are legitimate concerns.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
a taxi service would be good for the Airbnb. Sounds like there's already people wandering around town with suitcases, don't know how to get to their house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for the prospect because my car's like not nearing the end of its life, but it's a Kia and it's almost out of its warranty. So I'm like, do I want to get another car or do I not want to get another car? I live in town, I work in town, but I need another car to get to the dump. I need another car to take my dog out to the Husky Trailhead, and I don't know what the pet policy is. I'm not assuming I can let my Husky shed all over inside this car. But there are certain things like that where I do need a car occasionally, where I feel like this could really work for me, where I could sell my car, make a couple $1,000s, not need a car, and be able to take the bus to DIA when I fly to California and visit my family, and borrow this to take my dump run or do my weekly errands or whatever.
The only thing I would say, this is not really a sad issue, is I think anybody that can have a car up here should have a car up here. So because if you need to evacuate, you're gonna want your own car. So
Yeah.
you're not going to take RTD, or.
I'm not fitting much in my car besides the 100-pound Husky and myself and my kid, like already, that's just gonna be the three of us.
Those are the most
On your way.
important things, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
They're
used to live
important
in,
documents.
I used to live in Big Spring, so we were like, we're just hitting the trail and we're cutting over to Magnolia. We're out.
Did you
But-
have to say something about trees, or was that just sort of an offhand?
Well,
Fallen trees, or?
Well, when you drive around town, there's a lot of dead trees lying everywhere, and I just had the good people, tree service, clean out my acre of dead trees, and I'm right next to the Reynolds Ranch open space, so I'm after the county to
Yeah,
do something about those trees,
yeah,
so.
One of the problems is there is no market for trees in the front range. There is no forestry industry in the front range. You cannot, it costs more to take a tree to someone that can make use of it down in Longmont or someplace like that. Costs more to drive it down there with the truck, even if it's fully loaded, than they will pay for the trees.
There are local folks that
Yeah,
provide firewood.
right.
I was just talking, a guy got us some firewood, and he said, I don't know if I can provide it next year, I don't know if I'm gonna have a source for trees. I said, why don't you talk to Boulder County about some of the trees they need to get rid of?
Yeah, I don't know if open space does the same thing that the Forest Service does. Well, they'll give you a permit and you can go harvest firewood from Forest Service land. I'm not sure if
They
Boulder
did all
County
that
does
cutting
that.
in Mud Lake open space. They just piled up all that wood and it's not gonna be burned.
I thought they're gonna chip it.
They're gonna dig piles, right? That could have gone to homeowners. Anyway.
I don't think there's anything this board can do about the tree issue with the simple facts.
Yeah, I think our jurisdiction would be anything within the town of Nederland city limits. Maybe we could do something, but beyond that, it's
Yeah.
a little harder.
But I do know, Jim, that Nikki Dunn, Parks Manager, is looking at some grants for mitigation, and some people have reached out to her about down trees in park open space, and she's worked with them. And I think you're meeting with Josh soon, next week, sometime. Our streets manager, you could also talk to him about it when you meet with him.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, I met with him this
Oh,
afternoon.
you did, okay. And so Nikki is his counterpart in the Parks Department.
Right.
I can connect you with.
and then Saws and Slaws is still around helping
No,
mitigate?
no, it's
They're
not.
in Coal Creek Canyon, right?
I don't know. They're not here. Nikki was gonna look at that. Nikki's hoping to kind of cross off some projects off her list. But
Yeah.
Slaws and Slaws is definitely something she's interested in trying to. bring
Because
back
they
up.
were the people that, like, if you had a neighbor who didn't mitigate their property and, you weren't sure if they could even afford to mitigate their property, then you could call Saws and Slaws, say, hey, my neighbor really needs to mitigate. Can you come out and talk to him? Saws and Slaws would go out, talk to him, and then say, oh, yeah, we'll bring a volunteer crew. We'll help you mitigate your property for super cheap and kind of helped
some of those more outlying properties that way.
Yeah.
But I know Boulder County open space is different.
Oakland County has an ongoing program like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's where it's at, skilled then.
Should we move
Well,
on to
thank
our
you.
executive session?
Is there any other updates? Anything others?
Well,
Can I go back to the car share for a moment? I just had a quick comment on the like out of town visitors. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
I think it's really important if this passes that when we go through like our messaging and education about it, that we do kind of have very clear messaging about the difference between a rental car and then a car share. And that like a car share is really a community asset and kind of how he framed it with it being, looked after by the community members and we don't want people abusing the cars and really taking care of them. I think that that's really important to people in Nederland who own Airbnbs to have that education to then communicate about it to their guests in the right way. And then also I was looking at their FAQs and it looks like they send you a fob in the mail. So Airbnb guests would have to do some really advanced planning to get approved in that 5-day process, get a fob in the mail. They have to pay a membership fee too to even use the car. So it might not even be worth it for Airbnb guests to pay a membership fee and then also pay the rental fee for everything.
Yeah, but then they're liable.
I want some renter taking a car out, I'm liable for it.
Yeah, under.
Yeah. Interesting.
You know. I've
Yeah.
heard-
So
Okay.
anyways, just something to consider with the messaging I thought I'd bring up.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, good points.
Yeah, I think rental cars get trashed.
And they also say, no, you cannot transport a pet in the vehicle and you can't smoke in the vehicles.
Yeah, that was my assumption.
They have a really good FAQ on their website I was poking through.
There's only one rental car company I could find in anywhere of Colorado that will allow you to rent a car and put your pet in it. So you're pretty limited on options, unless it's a service animal, of course.
They do say to be in a carrier, but I'm sure most people don't have carriers for their large dogs.
Not,
Maybe
there's a few of them, but not many.
Well, I've got another business item. In the latest newspaper, there's a lot of debate about the child care center.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed, somebody said something like, we have the rights of nature to protect the creek. And they implied that using the Old Town Shop property does need some cleanup of hazardous materials.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to take place no matter what
Mm-hmm.
it's used for. And they implied that we need to protect the creek from having something like a childcare center there. Well, the childcare center building would necessitate cleaning up the property and would enhance the creek.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want the rights of nature to be invoked to block childcare.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's gonna be worse than multifamily housing there too, which is gonna have, I would think, a similar impact
Yeah.
on.
Or worse.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with people making their own choices of their own free will versus a group of preschoolers that are there from 9 to 5 and that's it.
Yeah.
You know?
So I just want to bring that up. I mean, I don't know if the BOT wants to say something about it. I think it's hard, Rich and I should say anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I can say, two things. So technically, the site has been deemed that no remediation is needed. It's gone through 2-phase assessments and no Now, that being said, a community member did ask, and I did follow up with the CDPHE Safer site, which is for childcare. And so I sent the results onto them and I have a call with them tomorrow. And so we'll see what they have to say. Yeah, I mean, I think there is a community member, there's a few community members who are utilizing rights of nature as kind of a reasoning to block this proposal. There was a bit of confusion too about the jurisdictional authority. Of course, we can monitor and support and advocate for that waterway, but we have no jurisdictional authority over that waterway.
I was gonna say, but we're talking about the waterway that actually isn't covered.
Correct.
Rights of nature.
Well, so Rights of Nature covers Middle Boulder Creek though, and that feeds Middle Boulder Creek. So that North Beaver can be monitored and advocated for, but there's no jurisdictional authority.
Okay.
Well, to the extent that the rights of nature ordinance would impact this at all, it is an ordinance of the town board. And if the town board passes a superseding ordinance, a previous ordinance of the town board can in no way impair their ability to pass a
It's like
superseding.
you can't rob yourself.
Well, but again, so that's a resolution on ordinance, the rights of nature, and I do, again, I think it's philosophical in many ways in nature. I mean, we're gonna do the right thing by the environment and monitoring and advocating for and supporting.
That is all true. But the board did not pass something that is akin to a constitution of the town that can only be amended by some kind of strange procedure.
Yeah.
The board is, the board cannot take an action without changing like the town charter or something like that, that limits the board's ability to take future action.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the board can take whatever action it wants, regardless of whether they pass this rights of nature resolution in the past. And it's an aspirational thing, and it's an aspirational thing at this point only.
I think it does bring up the question though of at what point in the process does the sustainability board weigh in? Because typically we don't weigh in until there's a fleshed out proposal before us. But so often we are called to come and speak on it before that is the case.
I mean, they'll go, if the Board of Trustees amends the use group table to allow private schools on public lots, which goes before them next week, Teen Inc. plans to go forward with their SRU application. Now, an SRU application typically would not come before SAB. I will recommend always that it goes before advisory boards and commissions, but it doesn't technically have to. The board could always kick it back to you all, ask that you weigh in on it. But yeah, that would be the time because you'd have the full proposal of the site.
I would want to see the plans, I'd want to see the footprint, I want to see how close it actually is to the creek.
That's my
Yeah,
biggest
so
thing is how close are we talking to the creek?
at this
Like you
point,
say, most, different kinds of housing is probably at least a more severe impact.
Yeah.
it could be.
And, one of the, comments was there should be a buffer. Well, sure, that makes sense. You don't want somebody getting rid of it, but letting the
And
creek,
that's mandated by the EPA against a waterway.
Yeah.
A certain amount of the flood plain or whatever. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question.
Olive Meadow was in a floodplain.
Correct. The 100.
Giant.
Is it in
Anyway,
there?
I just wanted to bring that up, so that's why us to get dragged in sideways.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I whether SAB wants to go out and give a statement is up to you. You do have two members. I would argue in some capacity, weaponizing and or also misconstruing what the rights of nature resolution is in some capacity. A lot of emails have come to town staff about rights of nature and what it does for that waterway. There is some misinformation definitely floating out there about it.
I wanted to bring it up while we had the view. Listening, cutting the cold. So the mayor.
Maybe not for the forward on the road.
The pro wants to say that on behalf of the DOT.
Yeah, I don't know, Nicole. I wouldn't say that Nicole's been on the emails, and so she might not even be aware that's primarily been happening with Mayor Billy and Mayor Pro Tem Hold, but
Right.
Nicole, I don't know if you wanted to say anything. I mean, I guess you've kind of seen it come up but there's been some public talking about rights of nature and the childcare.
I mean, I wouldn't mind saying something, but I don't want to alarm the DOT that I'm speaking for them about rights of nature issues.
I really feel like that's
I
a
haven't been a
full call.
I think we would need that ordinance passed or that new thing passed anyway, really to clarify, which hasn't been passed yet, right? So,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, my position is, I don't think it's appropriate for us to have a position, certainly not before we know what the actual plans are gonna be, and we see what those are. And then I think we would also need to consider what the alternatives are, because I don't think this is gonna become a park. I think it's pretty clear it's not.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about this whole idea of like, okay, well,
it's not gonna be housing and it could possibly be something else. What is the most sustainable thing to put there? You know, we're dealing with regular planning and zoning, which isn't the most sustainable, and how do we start to,
We're still
I
limited
don't know,
by the
make
use
an
group
impact
table.
on that conversation?
Yeah, sorry, the use group table is gonna be limiting. It's a housing or this soon, maybe soon to be childcare.
Well, and so, and if I was a BOT member, I would have just rezoned the property to residential, because then you could put a childcare there, or you could put a residential building there, or you could do whatever is in that residential use group. You know, and that was, they didn't make that decision. They made a different decision to not rezone the property. So it's tricky there, but
Maybe you could do both.
yeah,
Build some housing and have a daycare center.
yeah.
I mean, ironically, there was a daycare center right across the road with a brewery.
Mhm. You know, but honestly,
They objected, these people that are objecting to all the noise kids playing,
mhm.
don't object to the loud music at the brewery.
No, they objected to this 2-story condos right next to the brewery. You know, instead, right? The housing, the affordable housing.
So it's, you know, a little ironic. I didn't make it take too much time, but
Yeah, yeah. But I think it does, you know, we've also got the Ron Mitchell project coming down the pipeline, and like people asking me and Ron Mitchell asking me and other people asking, like, is SAP gonna weigh in on this? And, you know, we did look at this project a few years ago and gave him some feedback. We did an unofficial scorecard is what we kind of told him. We'll put it through the process, but we're not giving an official score because you don't have an actual proposal with buildings that designs that we can look at. And kind of gave him suggestions and walk away. And so, you know, does it make sense to do something like that for some of these projects
Yeah.
that are bigger, that really make that community impact
I
as
think-
they're coming down the pipeline? Because I would have loved to rebut against some of the stuff that was said at the meeting, especially about like rights of nature or things like that, that is just like so not true and so not related. But I also don't want to speak for the whole SAB board when we don't have it before us. And, you know, where is it appropriate for us to like,
Yeah, I think it gets a little tricky because the code doesn't require it to come before you, and so that
Yeah.
would be an applicant doing the right thing, right? And
Yeah.
bringing it before you
Yeah.
themselves, or the board of trustees dictating that it comes to SAP. You know, I think most applicants are open and willing. I know Ron met with Leah to get, you know, some kind of from a sustainability, like your coordinator's perspective. But even though that preliminary PUD will never require full architectural drawings as
Yeah.
the code stands right now, so. You never be able to do a
So
full scope.
I don't want
scorecard.
like every commercial process to involve us, right? Of course, that's that, but something like a PUD, maybe that would always trigger coming before the SAB or something like that, a larger development like that.
Well, and I would think also, if the community has raised some type of hue and cry about sustainability issues with a particular proposal,
Mhm.
that might also be something, regardless of the other factors that we, and I'm speaking obviously of this thing at the Old Town Shop site,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But it's premature, I think, to even think about that. It's just-
Yeah, I mean, technically, there's no proposal to your point. I mean, there's a proposal, but no plans.
Not
And
a-
they can't run plans without having their use group table amended. And that's what's gonna potentially happen on this upcoming Tuesday.
Right.
If the board votes to pass that ordinance to allow private schools on public lots, then Teens Inc. can run through their SRU, and I meet with them next week, and I'm happy to say, hey, SAP will be really interested in seeing your proposal.
Mhm.
And ideally before it becomes quasi judicial, because that's gonna get real tricky. So.
Well, and honestly, I don't have a lot of worries about Teens Inc. not working hard to be as sustainable as they can when building that building. But yeah, Maddie, did you have something to say?
Yeah, this is probably like a huge stretch goal, but just thinking about like future development within the town. And this would probably require some kind of code change, but saying that all new or retrofit construction for, I don't know, whatever subset of buildings, whether it's commercial or otherwise, maybe they don't need to get like a certification necessarily, but a lot of places across the country are now starting to say it needs to be designed to lead silver or designed to lead gold. And that way you're not forcing them to get the certification because that's costly, but saying you have to follow the guidelines and complete, you know, whatever the preliminary checklist would be. Or, you know, there's things out there like the well building standard that's focused more on like occupant health as well as building design. Of course, that would be a huge step, but just something to think about for the future to ensure that all developments are considering like overarching sustainability measures.
Maddie, I agree, and I did include that in my recommendations to Ron, not the certification, but building to lead standards.
Yeah, like design too. Cool.
And that reminds me that, something Leah brought to my attention is that in the SAB scorecard, we don't, like knock off any points for natural gas. Basically, natural gas is considered fine, under the scorecard. And is that something that you want to bring back on the next agenda to revisit that section that deals with natural gas and how we wanna, edit that?
I feel
Or do
like
we-
that would depend on kind of where the market is. Like, I think we'd have to talk about it more.
Do you have any input?
No, I mean, that makes sense right there. It is still needed, but in terms of Ron's plan, which is how this came up, is he listed that as a backup for heat pumps, which currently is the case, but if we're thinking long-term and this is going to take several years, I mean, it's cleaner than burning coal, but it's not considered a clean energy source. It's not clean energy, so.
Well, and I just saw something that Boulder County doing away with it for commercial buildings.
Yeah, and so it is a bit progressive to remove it at this stage. And there are other, you know, it would make sense for him to have battery storage as a
Yeah.
backup or something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, it could be discussed more, but I don't know that I would consider that a long-term solution. If we're moving towards building electrification and Ron's making these plans for years in the future.
You know,
Ever you?
You're kind of cutting up a lot.
No, it's bad.
yeah, I always like to know what the realities are and the costs. And, I think a lot of people in this town have natural gas. I think in 30 years, a lot of people in this town are gonna have natural gas, and it's just the way it is. And I don't think, at this point, with the technology the way it is, and sometimes the cost of electricity can be pretty high, to just say to someone, boy, you know, we're all of a sudden gonna make your project so many percent more expensive to build. Or, I think that we don't have enough information to say that to someone, to Ron or to anybody else. When you're talking money, it's not aspirational anymore. It's not, hey, let's try to do this. It's, you're gonna be paying.
Yeah.
And that's different to me.
Yeah. Does anybody have strong feelings about just not doing anything right now and letting it go until a point in time where it does make sense to go back and revisit that?
Rob, are you back?
He's on there, but he's muted.
Hearing that nobody strongly objects to that, then, we'll leave the scorecard as is for now. I'll make a mental note to myself to check up, again, in a year or so and just see how we're feeling about it then. So, any other items, or we will move into our executive session.
I move that we move into the executive
It's a
session.
very specific language,
Oh,
so she'll
okay.
like it. Segment.
I'll second it.
All right, so I will motion to go into an executive session pursuant to the Colorado Revised Statute, section 24-6-402, part 4F, for a discussion of a personnel matter involving the 2024 contract of the sustainability coordinator who has consented to the executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we will call a vote. Nicole,
Yes.
Maddie?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Myself? Yes.
Rich, yes.
Rich? Yes. Rab? Okay.
So Jim, this becomes a private session with just the board, so we'll have to say farewell to you. I'm so sorry. But thanks for
coming, Jim.
It was very interesting.
appreciate it.
How many times?
Yeah, come again.
And thanks for the info that I won't start that taxi business.
Ah,
Or you will.